How's it going? I hope you're doing well. It's really wonderful to get to talk to you today. Now, I want you to watch this video if you're planning on voting this election season. Of course, I hope that you are going to vote because it's something that we all need to do, right? Especially for those that are qualified for vote. For example, myself, I'm not American, so I wouldn't be voting. I'm not a U.S. citizen, even though I live in the U.S., so I wouldn't be voting this election season. But something I wanted to mention, especially if you're thinking about voting, I want you to remember two things. It's important that you vote for two things: vote for competence and vote for character. And why do I say this? You get to know a bit more about that as we unpack some of that today. Now, I will not be telling you who you should vote for, but I would at least I'll tell you some of the qualities that you should look at for in your prospective president. One would be competence. I think competence is simply the ability to do a job effectively, based on the knowledge that someone has, based on their skill, also based on their experience. And I think competence can involve in leadership the kind of decision that people make, how quick that they are to make a decision. It could also involve their problem-solving skills, under pressure, how they were able to solve a particular problem, and also international policy expertise is very important and foundational. And I think when looking at thinking about who to vote for, that could be where to start. And you don't just get competence by just merely saying that you are competent, right? To get competence, it might involve having a bit of experience, that you've kind of had some sort of track record of success in relevant positions, that kind of positions you to do what you are supposed to do in your current position or prospective position. But also, most importantly, I think knowledge is also very central to competence. When you're thinking about someone that's competent, it's someone that has knowledge, and it simply involves or means to understand the key issues that is grappling either the country, and knowing that you know what exactly is the problem, whether it's about the economy, whether it's about the healthcare system, and thinking about how you can actually address those problems as a leader. You have knowledge about the current foreign policies. You'll be surprised that a lot of leaders, even though they are going for political office, don't have sufficient knowledge or expertise to grapple with current foreign policies, that is existing. But also, I think adaptability is also another key factor or important factor to consider when you're thinking about competence, right? How is the leader's ability to sort of adapt or navigate a crisis situation or an uncertainty? How are they able to really navigate that to demonstrate their competence in spite of that? The other part of competency, I think, in leadership, especially in political leadership, would be the ability of the leader to contribute to some policy changes that have made significant impact in the course of history or during the course of their time in office, whether it's as a senator or maybe in their own business. For example, we have two candidates. One have had some kind of political lifeline as a judge, but also serving really within the public service sector. The other person also is a business person. I mean by that, Trump as well. It's important to think about what kind of policy decisions has someone like Trump, for example, contributed to over the years, and how has that impacted the current U.S. State that we have today. On the other hand, also, you could also ask the same question about Kamala Harris, who have worked within the public sector, to ask a question around what kind of policy changes has she led or contributed to over the time that she has served, whether it's as a judge or whatever, till the current time that she's currently actually vice president. How has her work contributed to some of the significant changes in the country, right? And so when you start to ask those questions, it start to paint a picture of their level of competence and whether or not, and that should be one of the determining factor that you should consider when thinking about who to vote, right? How is their competence level, and how has that shaped the current political, social, economic climate of the country? And that is a good place to start. Now, the second thing to look out for is character. And character in political leadership is very important. We'll take a break for just a second, and we'll be back and I'll talk about character. Hi, welcome back. And so the second thing I think we should watch out for our political leaders, especially as we're thinking about this election, I think it's competence. Competence, of course, is the moral and ethical standards that guide a person's behavior or decisions. And some of the key qualities that you could look out for, especially when you're thinking about people's character, would be things like integrity, things like empathy, how do they care and understand? Do they care or even understand the well-being of other people, all the citizens in general? The other thing to watch out for will be consistency, right? Are they staying true to their values, even when it's difficult? And particularly here in the U.S., the United States, which is a Christian country. Some would say it's not a Christian country, but fundamentally, most U.S. presidents, at least those that are actually at least the two top candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, have actually said that they're Christians. If that's the case, then their values, the question we should ask is their values consistent with the Christian values? Is it consistent with Christian values? Are things that they are saying or how they're representing themselves, does it really confine within biblical theology or scripture, if you will? But most importantly, the other aspect of character that I think is important is accountability, right? Which is really the willingness to sort of take responsibility for our actions, right? How is the candidate willing to be accountable, right? Accepting they are wrong when they are wrong, because who's perfect? No one is perfect. How are they able to also communicate that effectively to people with a heart of humility? And let me backtrack a bit, especially as I talk about the consistency with our values. And given our values, let's say our Christian values, if the two candidates are Christians, then if that's the case, one of the things, especially when you think about competence, is really about, when you think about character, it's an indicator of the fruit of the Spirit, right? And we know the fruit of the Spirit, there's about 9 of them. Love is a part of that. At the heart of character, I think it's love, right? Love, some would say, is the greatest virtue. And so if you're someone of character, you are someone that does love, not just God, of course, but also you love your neighbors as you love yourself, which, of course, is a mandate that's been dictated for us in the scripture. And so love becomes at the center of that. One of the other fruit of the Spirit, it's kindness, it is self-control. It is gentleness, and all those things are things that make up character, I believe, the virtue of character in itself. And so when we're thinking about those to vote for in this season, I think it's important that we think about the character of our candidates, the candidates that we have in mind, but also most importantly, are they people that truly are showing consistency with their values? And in this instance, given the fact that the two candidates are Christians, are their values, do they stay true to their values, to their Christian values, right? And you can know that by thinking about the policies they've signed up for in the past and their track records, because those are ways that we can, checkmate this to make sure that they're staying true to their values. But most importantly, I think it's important to have both. Neither it's complete, right? You can't have competence without character. It's kind of half-baked, because competence without character can lead to self-serving or even harmful decision-making in the process, because you're bent on doing what you think is right, based on your knowledge and your understanding of the situation. And we do know that sometimes our understanding of a situation or a thing, sometimes it's not complete, right? It's not all there is to say about that. And also the other thing also is that character without competence might lead to ineffective leadership. Leaders that have character without competence, oftentimes they're good people, they love their country, they want to do good for their country, they're passionate about their country, but at the end of the day, they don't have the knowledge and the skill set and the competencies to drive things forward and move things forward and change policies that would impact the generations yet unborn, because they are weak on competence. And so I don't think one is better than the other. It's important to kind of become both, which is why I'm not surprised that Jesus in the Bible had mentioned that this becomes the disposition of Christians, that we are the salt of the earth, but also we are the light of the world. And as I've said in previous podcasts and recordings, being the light of the world is really a metaphor for competence, because what does it mean to be light? Light is bright, light has color, light has intensity, especially the brightness of light. It's what it is that really emphasizes that competence, right? How bright is your mind? The brightness of light, or how bright your mind is contingent on the knowledge that you have and the understanding you have about a situation. And of course, color in itself, being a property of light, becomes a very attribute of excellence, right? Being colorful. And so for leaders, we want to vote for leaders, a president that is truly a light, right? Someone that has competence, that has color, has a spirit of excellence, but also someone that is bright, right? That can really understand, has knowledge and understanding of the situations and things happening in the country, and true policy changes that hopefully he or she can effect can really transform our nation. But on the other hand, also, I think having character, it's really an indicator of being the salt of the earth. And what do we know that salt is for? Of course, salt, in some cultures, it's used as a healing property. You add salt to things to kind of help to, like an open wound, once you add a salt, that's usually very painful, but over time it can help to kind of speed up and accelerate the healing process. Also, salt is also used as a preservative in some countries. And so in some cultures, and if that's the case, then that property of salt being a preservative, God is calling leaders that has character, so that when they get in political offices, they can preserve the system, what is the country, the institutions, the constitution. They're preserving that. And so it's important to get leaders that have competence, but that's not enough. Character is also very important. It's also important to have leaders that have character, but character is not enough. You've got to also make sure that they have competence. And I'm hoping that as you're thinking about who to vote for in this season, that you start to do your research, right? Check if they have competence, go through the candidate's resume, look into their past roles, check their policy track records to see if what they're saying is aligning to who they should be, right? They should be people of character and competence. But also look at some of their public debates, look at some of their interviews, look at maybe publications that they've written, and also those that have been reading about them. And from there, you can get a sense of who these people are, and you could get a sense of how their policies or things that they've done kind of tells you about who they are, On the other hand, also think about their character as well, right? You could analyze their past action. You could listen more to pay attention to their personal stories and the reputation that they have among their peers. If a leader, for example, those that have worked with the leader in the past, even in the present, always say something about the leader's reputation, that's a red flag, right? And so it's important to look at patterns, look for patterns in how they respond to criticism or to failure. Are they the type that don't take accountability for their previous past actions, or are they always blaming others? That's a red flag, right? That's a red flag right there. Are they consistent in their Christian values if they are Christians? Are they consistent with their political values if they, sign up for a particular political office or running from a particular political party? How have they kind of handled some of their moral failures? We're not saying that we're all perfect, right? But, how have they been able to handle the mistake they've made in the past? Those are the things that really tells you who a person is, right? And so my encouragement to you this election season, we have just 12 days to the election. I think you should watch out for some red flags, right? Watch out for your candidates and make sure that they're not over-promising without having concrete plans, right? That's a big red flag, because it tells you a lot about the person's maybe they don't have competence. They're very loud and they can talk well, but really there's no concrete plan to support their grandiose promise, right? Also look out for transparency or their history of dishonesty, if there's anything like that. That tells you a lot about their character, right? And also you want to check for inconsistencies in their values or their political opportunities, just to make sure that that they are really consistent with their values, and also they're not the type that turn to politics because of the opportunity that maybe it might bring to them. And so at the end of the day, I think character and competence becomes that hallmark qualities that we should look out for in any political leader or any political candidate for that matter. And in this election, I think it's important that you look out for that before you vote. Okay. Now, I know some of you might be wondering, why do I need to bother? It's already messy. And why do I need to worry about this election? Well, if you don't know, of course, it's important that you vote. It's your personal responsibility because every vote kind of contributes to shaping the future of this great nation, right? It's also important to be an informed voter, which is why I'm making this video as part of our monthly podcast, because not just that we focus on the short-term gains, but also the long-term implication of voting a particular political leader. If you vote one that has competence without character, the person will end up enacting policies and reforms that might impact, at least in the short term, might impact the health of the nation without the person caring or not whether that is the case, right? Whether or not people are suffering or people are dealing with the after effect or aftermath of their policy changes. On the other hand, you could have a leader that has competence, but that has character, but no competence. The implication of that is that you have a nice, good leader that have a good heart for the people, but really not making any progress, right? So you want a leader that to some degree has both qualities. Now, if you're thinking about voting, I hope you consider these two things. Don't vote blindly, be an informed voter, and make sure that your vote count. If you've not registered up to this point, make sure that you've done that. It's your civic duty. And I hope that you make the right decision come November 5th. And, after that, I might make another video and tell you what I think. But in the meantime, make sure that you drop your comment if you are thinking about a political leader and you're questioning about their character and competence or so. Maybe others might also join in to tell you about what they think. Let's become informed voters, I think. And I think when we think about flourishing, I think that it might start with the voting choice that you make. So if we're thinking about a flourishing future, I think it's important that we think about people that has competence and character. Thank you, and I hope you have a great time. We'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.